there wasn't really much that represented Africans, so basically, what are the children in Africa and all over the
Right.
world? What apps are they going on? What software are they using? What stories, content is accessible to them that represents them?
Oh man, I'm so glad that you're here. Can you introduce yourself and tell us about you and your inspiration behind Esopip Africa?
Okay, so I'm Oghomwen Edward, and I currently live in the UK. I have 3 children, and I created Esopip Africa. And basically, Esopip Africa creates content for children with an African theme. So we have videos. Yeah, mostly that's it, videos. And very soon we'll be launching coloring books and other things like that. Yes.
Oh wow, that's so exciting. And I
Yeah.
mean, I love the idea of coloring books. Wow.
Yes, I'm really excited about that. In a few weeks, to be truthful, we'll be launching coloring books. And basically, what we want to do with the coloring books, or what I want to do with the coloring books, is to offer children, well, what will I say? For them to have coloring books that they can color and at the same time learn about culture, African culture or Black culture from around the world. So, learn things like modes of dressing, hairstyles and things like that, that, are typical to Africans culture or Black culture around the world. So,
Hmm.
yeah.
That's so exciting. So, like, even just thinking about creating content that has that African focus, like, what gap were you seeing in content that's available right now that made you decide, I want to focus on this? I want to really highlight content that has African themes.
Okay. Basically, it really started during the lockdown. Or I started thinking about this during the lockdown. When lockdown started, and children were at home and were learning, homeschooling at home, um, I was getting a lot of information about resources for children. And I would go through these resources, looking at websites, books, apps, and things like that. And I would notice that there wasn't really much that represented Africans, so basically, what are the children in Africa and all over the
Right.
world? What apps are they going on? What software are they using? What stories, content is accessible to them that represents them and is things that they can relate with? And I didn't find a lot. That was my experience. I don't know about others, but I didn't find a lot. And secondly, I come from a film and television background. I used to work in Nigeria in the film and television industry. And one thing is very peculiar, I find, about the Nigerian film and television industry, but more film, I will say, is that, the Nigerian film industry, popularly known as Nollywood, produces a lot of content, a lot of films. It's like the second largest in the world. But however, very, it's, it's when it comes to content for children, it's quite difficult to find. And that I found was interesting. Also, again, what I also found interesting was that content in indigenous languages for children back then was very hard to find. And that made me begin to think, how can I create that type of content that children could watch and see themselves represented in? And I say I create content with an African theme, or for. But I don't feel my content is just for African children. The world is a global world now, and it's not just for African children. It has an African theme, Black theme, but it is for children everywhere.
Yeah,
so that's some of the thinking.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because learning about culture shouldn't be restricted to just the people who live in that culture or who are from that culture. So that makes a lot of sense. I know growing up, we were reading books like, I don't know if you read those books, but See Jack Run and See Jane Jump and stuff like that, right? And they felt like that was the best way to teach us. And we're learning about apples, even though I didn't have any apples in Lagos, all of that stuff. So I'm wondering from you, why do you think it's important developmentally for children to have access to content like what you are describing?
It's a very interesting question. It's a good question. For me, because I live in the UK and my children are growing up in the UK, and we are African, we are Nigerian, they are Yoruba, I find there is a disconnect with where they come from and the life they live now. So for me, it was important for me to kind of like make that connection for them. Let them see content that is reflective of where they are coming from and what they do, what we do at home. I think it helps them to realize that in the society where they live in, where they are different, they are not different, actually. There are other people like them. There are other people that do what they do. And she just Anna, I'm in a recording.
So that's really important, because I can just give examples of, because I'm based in Canada now. I live in Canada now. And I remember my daughter with her name, she thought that her name was rare. Like, she's never seen anybody with her name. And so when she started researching and seeing online that there are people that had the exact same name or had the same last name, or and then at some point after a long time, she was in a classroom, an online class, and there was somebody else with the exact same name. All of a sudden she realized, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not odd, like I'm okay, My parents were not strange for giving me this name, because there's only so much you can do to try to encourage your child. But if the outside world is telling them something differently, it can be a different experience. So I'm really glad that you're thinking about this connection for them, like learning their culture and just like valuing their identity. So now another thing that's really interesting is, like, how do you make sure that it's educational but still engaging? Because these kids, they can be like, it's educational, that's fine, I'm not interested. So how do you try to incorporate that?
Okay, for now, what I produce is actually really quite bite-sized pieces. So I'm looking at children who are quite young, like 3 to 8, 10. So it's really, really bite-sized pieces. What I focus on in what I create now is the artistic part of things, because I feel as if, or I see that children learn a lot when they are in a creative process, when they get to do something, especially the younger children. And it was just something we enjoy doing at home. We enjoy arts and crafts. We enjoy making things. And through arts and crafts, you can introduce, information, and you can introduce facts to them, and you can introduce, learning to them. So that's what I started doing. So basically, my videos or my content work in such a way where we're doing something creative, but then I give you the idea or the facts behind this creativity that we are engaged in. So, for example, one of the episodes will talk about African fashion or African prints or African clothing. And you can learn, and in it, you would learn about different types of African fabrics. And then in this particular episode, we get to make, a little tiny doll wearing an African fabric. So hopefully from that episode, you've learned something, that there are different types of fabrics in Africa. You can learn what they are, and then you get to engage in a creative activity. So my episodes are not that long. Bite-sized episode, bite-sized facts or information for young children.
I really love that idea of creating things. And I mean, I'm a grown-up and I enjoy creating things. I can only imagine that children would love that. So how do you come up with like the ideas, or say, okay, this is what I want to cover today? And how do you go through that process of, okay, this is what the activity will be?
Okay. I'm referring now to Esopip Africa Arts and Crafts. That's what my flagship series is called. Basically, a lot of them were also inspired by some of the books my children had been engaging with by other Black authors. So we would read them, go through them, and the pictures would pop up. And we would think, oh, that would make a good craft. And then I would say the craft usually comes up first before the facts. So, for example, we read A Fun ABC by Sade Fadigbe. And in it, the main character is wearing an African pendant. So we did that. And then we got to discuss facts about Africa. Where is Africa? How many countries are in Africa? And then, we got to make that. So usually it starts with the craft first, right now. And then I able to think of what facts or what information can I pass across.
That's awesome. So would you say that it helps children with creativity?
Yes. Interestingly, the author also. Okay.
So yeah, continue about creativity.
Yes. So I would say that usually the idea comes from the craft, and then I think of how we can weave one or two facts or information about Africa when doing this craft. For example, one of the episodes I did, we made an African necklace, and the inspiration from that came from a book by a Nigerian author called A Fun ABC. You can see a copy of it here by Sade Fadigbe. And in it, the main character, Adana, is wearing an African pendant. I don't know if you can see it right there. A pendant shaped like Africa. Yes. So we did that. And then we made it.
Wow.
There you see her. And so we made it. And then in that episode, we're able to discuss how many countries is in Africa. Africa is a continent, things like that. So usually the idea for the episodes will come from a craft, and then we expand to see what kind of facts or information we can get into it. Yes.
That's amazing. And I know you've always been really good at book recommendations. Some of our favorite books are either the books that you got for us or books that you recommended. So it's always been helpful for my children whenever they see books like that. So thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So what are some of the challenges that you face when you're trying to create this educational content?
Oh, challenges. I think one of them would be time, because I'm currently on my postgraduate journey at the university. So time would be one. Sometimes it's resources as well, and also getting other VOD platforms interested, because you create this content, it can't just sit on your shelf. YouTube is okay and fine, but I would like to reach a bigger audience, that sort of thing. So getting other platforms to take your work and have it on their platform also is one of the things I'm also trying to get more of. Currently, we're streaming on EPTV for a while. We're still streaming on Kweli TV, I think. Yes, I know. And yeah, so trying to get more platforms, more VOD platforms that cater to children on board. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
And so for parents who are interested, maybe they don't have access to any of these platforms.
Yes.
What would you say are some suggestions for them to connect with you? Let's start there, to connect with you. And then after that, maybe some other resources you can recommend.
Okay. I'm also on YouTube. Esopip Africa Arts and Crafts. That particular series does not have all of its episodes on YouTube, but on my YouTube channel, I have craft videos and drawing videos as well. So the drawing videos, we draw different things with an African theme. So yeah, so we'll do drawing on how to draw Nelson Mandela, an Ndebele house, a Lagos taxi. How do you draw a Nancy? Ijakpa the tortoise, it's a folk tale from West Africa. So we have lots of drawing videos on my YouTube channel. You can also connect with me on Instagram, which is where primarily I recommend books as well. Yeah, where I do my book recommendations. And I would say those are the two best platforms to connect with. Esopip Africa. Yes.
Okay. And as far as like consuming content that just encourages children to find pride and to like feel proud of their heritage, or at least be proud of being African or things like that, what do you recommend that like parents can do to continue building that skill in their children?
Okay. One of the things I also think, apart from there's some content online that you can watch, of course. Kunda Kids is really good with books and with videos as well. And I always just recommend lots of books. Even if there are no videos, but lots of books. If your child loves picture books and is at the age where they can read picture books, you can read lots of picture books with them that have an African theme, that are from African authors, Black authors. And if you have other children who are not so interested in reading as well, because it varies. Some children are more into reading than others. I would also recommend reading with them. If it's a chapter book, read with them, sit down and read with them. And one of the other things that we've really come to enjoy are audiobooks, because if you don't want to read with them, they don't enjoy reading. You can also listen to audiobooks by Black authors as well. And one of the things that's really interesting when you expose, so I'm Nigerian, but I try to expose them to a wide array of African and Black literature. I think it really helps them to understand the world and understand that things are different. And, just listening to other cultures sparks imagination and creativity in their minds. I'll give you an example. My son read The Island Crew, The Lighthouse Thief. It's by, I know her name. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I do know the author's name. And it is a chapter book set in Jamaica. And the characters spoke with a, because if you know Jamaica, you know that they have like a Creole or a patois that they speak, which is different from maybe like the way we speak in Nigeria. But just exposing him to literature where people are speaking differently, someone said it helps the child to be able to know how to decode languages, decode texts, and understand. You know what I mean? But if you expose them only to one thing, only to what is familiar with you, how do they begin to connect and decode? For example, now, if you meet somebody who speaks differently or who speaks that particular type of patois, there's this understanding, this connection. Oh, yes, I know what you are saying. I've, read, this language in this book. Even somewhere as near to us as London, he was reading a middle grade book where the characters were speaking typical London English, and it was written in the text like that. And he said to me, I'm reading it slowly. And I said, why? He said, because of the way the characters speak. Mm-hmm. But by the time he has gone through that book, there is this connection forming in his brain, this understanding, So I think it's really, others may not think so, important. I think it's important. I think it is good. They may not be able to travel everywhere in the world, but with literature, with reading, they can be exposed to different cultures and different ways of life, which will help them to understand the world better and understand people better. So that's one of the reasons why. And then I'm not always intentional about this, but I think just dedicating time to doing it. When my children were younger, I know we did a lot of that dedicating time. There's nothing wrong with that. To just sit in or have 30 minutes on Thursdays where we'll look at a different country, look at a different place, culture, country from around the world and discuss it. And that is valuable. Why not be intentional? Why isn't that something worth being intentional about? So if you want your child to learn about where you come from and you're a diaspora parent, there's nothing wrong with intentionality. And it's not something we are used to because we grew up in our own culture. The culture, the language, everything was all around us. So when you ask your child a specific question like, how many states are in whichever country it is you come from, and they can't answer, it's how will I say, you find it interesting because you're like, at your age, I know how many states you have, but they're not growing up there. So if you want them to know and you want them to learn it, then I would think you should be intentional. It doesn't have to be such a big task. 30 minutes. 30 minutes, let's do some folk tales. 30 minutes, let's do some, learning, some crafts. So let's do a quiz show. I'll say some facts about where we come from, and then, you know, I'll quiz you on it and let's see who wins. There are games now. There are actually games you can get on Amazon. How Nigerian are you? you there's one about something jollof or something. There's a game like that on Amazon called, I can't remember, but I know it has jollof inside it. But those are quiz games. Those are games that you can play and fun way, and then they can learn about where you come from. So that's what I think sometimes.
Yeah, I'm glad you're mentioning just like fun ways and games and stuff like that. We actually got a board game some time ago that has, I think, all the countries in the world with their flags and stuff like that. We've never played the board game the way it was supposed to be played. All we just do is like pick a deck and just say, guess what's the capital? Guess what's the GDP? But we're enjoying ourselves. So just like making it fun. So outside of like maybe games like that, what are some strategies for making it fun? Because we don't want to be shaming our children. At your age, I knew this, or forcing them. So what are some things, especially as they get older? What would you recommend?
I would say, okay, sorry, just give me a moment, please.
Okay. So like just making things fun for the kids, especially as they grow older, where just being around you is not the most fun thing anymore. When they're tiny, they just want to be around you. But as they get older, how do you keep it interesting?
Oh, I don't have my oldest is 10, so I don't have teenagers, so I'm not quite sure about the older ones. But as you said, games. I think the board games and are an interesting way to connect with them. For the smaller ones, we do crafts, we do drawing, coloring. I would talk about that. If you find videos, shows on, sometimes we watch vlogs that are by Nigerians, or Africans based in Nigeria, based on the African continent. And we watch that, So that is actually real life. So we do that. We watch videos, we do crafts, we do coloring, we do games. And those are some of the things we do. Maybe finding out, seeing what the older kid likes and trying to weave that information around what they like, maybe music. And so, for example, you would talk about music. We like to, what are you listening to? Let me show you this, let me show you that, this song, blah, blah, blah. And I think finding ways to be able to talk through it is all just right. That's the way I see it. It's not always like so strict, like blah 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 blah. But it's just, I'll tell you a story, folk tales to the younger ones. Let me tell you a story. Let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about that. And it's all just, would you like to listen to what we listened to when I was growing up? And it could be by Nigerian artists and things like that. I've played music for them, old school Nigerian songs that they actually that they actually thought was really cool.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yes.
That's so
yes,
cool.
I played some of it for them, and they thought it was cool. Yeah. So that discussion, exposing them a little by little.
Right. So one thing that I love a lot of things about you, but one of the things that I just love is just like your love of the library. Like I didn't think there was anybody that loves the library more than me, but you just like, how to use the library well. And I really appreciate that. And so I go through Instagram, look at your recommendations, see if I can find it in the library.
Yes.
So just thinking right now, maybe just at the top of your head, are there any authors or books that you would recommend to a family with younger children? So like you said, maybe 10 and below, like books that you would say, check it out. So maybe 0 to 3, definitely you want all these Lola books or, all of those kinds of things. What would you recommend?
Okay. 0 to 3. What did we do? Anna Hibiscus. I have Anna Hibiscus. Sorry, just give me a moment. Let me move here. Okay. Sorry. I have, should I go and bring them so I can show you like this?
No problem. Go
ahead. Okay. Yes. Oh. So for 0 to 3, picture books. Anna Hibiscus series is really good. Anna Hibiscus, really good. Who else? Shade Fadipe. Her book I just showed you, Fun ABC, is really lovely, and the illustrations are really, really beautiful in her book. For the older children, maybe like 7, the Lola books are really good as well, by Nikki Daly. I love Nikki Daly. I love his work. His picture books with Jamila are really beautiful as well. It's set in South Africa, so that's lovely. Really enjoy. And his early chapter books as well with Lola inside, Lolo inside them. Really good as well. For the older children who really enjoy reading, there's this UK author, Tola Okogu, and she has this series out at the moment, Onyeka. If your child, especially, well, we can't say they are boy books or girl books, but if your child loves superheroes or the idea of superheroes, the Onyeka books are beautiful. They are lovely. 3. So Onyeka and the Academy of the Sun is the first one, which I don't have here. This one is which one is it? This is the second one, and that is the third one in the series. And what's really lovely about this book is that, there is the genre Afrofuturism that is making a lot of waves, especially when Black Panther came out. I see these books as fitting in that genre, the Afrofuturism genre for children. For children who like reading about school and drama of school, the Jumi series. Jumi, you've read this one, right? Have you?
No, I just, when you said drama of school, I'm like, yes. I don't know why.
Yes, drama of school, set in a Nigerian boarding school. Yes, so it's really, really good. The first one is called Jumi at the River School. This is the second in the series, and then there's a third one out as well. So those are the ones that are, just to name a few. And what's really lovely about Onyeka is it really made, Onyeka and Jumi really made for good listening. We read them and we listened to the audiobooks as well. So for children who are like 8, 9, 10, I won't say 7 because my daughter is 7, and she is really captivated when she listens to Onyeka. She was really captivated listening to Jumi. And I'll tell you another series she was really captivated by. Do I have it here? I don't. It's what's it called? It's how can I just lost the name of the book at the top of my head. Can't remember, but it's by Alexandra McCall Smith. Yes, he has a chapter book for children. There's one where the character is named Precious. So he has like a whole series for her. And there's one where the main character is a boy. And I just can't remember the name. Maybe when I find the name, I'll show you so you can insert it somewhere. Or I could even look for. Yes, so that's really good. Listening to the audiobook of those. They make really nice audiobooks. If if your children, if the children struggle with reading, maybe an audiobook will really captivate them, Yeah.
Yeah, so. I love the idea of that. That's awesome. Well, I'll just say this has been amazing. I have some new books that I need to go find at the new resources. So thank you so much. Once again, go ahead. Yes.
Yes, and can I talk about CALFE? Yes. CALFE, the children, and so I'm currently involved with CALFE, which the full name is the Children and Authors Literary Fanfare and Events. Every year for the last 4 years in October, we do a Children and Authors event where we have authors from not only the UK, but from around the world come and talk about their books or do a book reading from their book. So currently, it started with an online event 4 years ago. So the next one will be on October 4th. Online, you can log in from the comfort of your home and listen to some great Black authors reading picture books, chapter books, reading from their picture books or chapter books. We even have a breakout room. Last year we had a breakout room with an illustrator where the children, learned about That's illustrating. Awesome. Yes. And there were prizes to be won and things like that. And this year, the online event is October 4th. So if you are looking for authors, looking for books, that you would like your children to read, that's written by African, Black authors, Caribbean authors, this is a great event to attend. If you live in the UK, we have 3 in-person events this year as well. One in Manchester, one in Chelmsford, and in London as well. So it's really a great community of authors, and the children love it. They love attending. Yeah.
That sounds amazing. I would love to learn more. So maybe we'll be able to share the links and stuff in the show notes for sure. Yes. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I want to be respectful of your time. I know you have things to do and children waiting patiently and assistants and PAs and everything. So thank you so much for this conversation. Once again, I guess the best way to reach out to you and to see your recommendations is on Instagram, Esopip Africa. Was there like one last thing you wanted to say to the parents that are on this journey? Is there one thing that you would say, if you don't do anything else, this is the one thing I want you to think about?
I wouldn't say, I can't think of anything top of my head. I'm a Christian. Okay. I'll just say pray. Okay. That's what we'll say. But I do your best. We'll just do your best. Whatever you can do your best. That's it. Do your best and leave the rest to God. That's right. Do your best with love and leave the rest to God. And you're doing well. That. Yeah.
I know. It's always good to have that reminder you're doing well.
You're doing well. As long as you're just putting your best with love, your best is good enough because it's your best.
That's right. So, you can't do better than your best.
Exactly. Let's do it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much again, Oghomwen. It's been such a pleasure having you.